Welcome to CNN 10 on this Friday, March 30th. My name is Cral Azuz. We're happy to see you. For the first time in almost 6 years, Malala Yousafzai has returned to her home country of Pakistan. The 20-year-old winner of the Nobel Peace Prize is known around the world as Malala. She spent most of her life advocating for girls' rights to an education, but that's something that the Taliban, a terrorist group that operates in Afghanistan and Pakistan, has tried to prevent. They attempted to assassinate Malala in 2012, but she survived the shooting, and afterwards she continued her own education as well as her fight for children's rights worldwide. There was a lot of security when she visited Pakistan early Thursday. Some people there see her as a hero, others see her as an agitator who should be silenced. But her visit defied Taliban threats to attack her again and fulfilled her dream of touching the ground of home. There have been a whirlwind of changes on and around the Korean peninsula since the lines of communication between North and South Korea opened back up before the Olympics. April 27th is the date when North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in are scheduled to meet at the demilitarized zone, the border between their nations. It'll be the first face-to-face meeting between Korean leaders in more than a decade, and it follows this week's surprise visit by North Korea's dictator to China. That's a nation whose relationship with North Korea has been significant, if not always harmonious.
It used to be said that the relationship between China and North Korea was as close as lips and teeth. China has always been North Korea's staunchest ally, since Kim Jong-un's grandfather Kim Il-sung established the totalitarian state back in 1948. It has provided economic life support, ideological backing, and support for North Korea on the international stage. In return, Communist North Korea has served Beijing as a buffer between China and South Korea, saving China from the prospect of US troops on its land border. But the relationship has been fraying since Kim Jong-un assumed power in 2011. He has repeatedly angered Beijing with nuclear bomb and ballistic missile tests that led to a dangerous, potentially military confrontation with the United States. Beijing's calls for restraint and dialogue were largely ignored by Kim. Indeed, some of North Korea's tests looked like they were deliberately provocative to Beijing. But the recent frosty relations are starting to thaw. Diplomacy is now front and centre on the Korean peninsula. The isolated Kim needs the support of Beijing and reportedly says he's ready to put denuclearization on the table. His country has been hit hard by international sanctions, and with more than 90% of North Korea's foreign trade, including its lifeblood oil, going through China, Kim needs their backing. For China, it wants to assert its role in any future negotiations on the Korean peninsula. Beijing's bottom line remains denuclearization, but it also wants to see Kim's regime stay intact. The alternative is unthinkable: a collapsed North Korea with millions of refugees flooding into the country. Or a reunified Korea with US influence stretching right up to its border. There's too much at stake for either side to walk away from each other.
10-second trivia. In what year was an estimated 1/3 of the global population infected by a severe flu virus? 1918, 1957, 1968, or 2009? The flu pandemic of 1918, also known as the Spanish flu, infected an estimated 500 million people worldwide. It was the worst in recent history. As far as this year's flu virus goes, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control is warning that a second wave may be on the way. What sickened so many people this winter, making it the worst season for flu outbreaks in years, was caused by a type of flu called influenza A. Officials believe those outbreaks have peaked and are now decreasing. But they're warning about another type of the flu called influenza B. At this time, those viruses are more frequently being reported in America. It's possible to get one flu after you've already had the other. This year's vaccine was mostly ineffective against influenza A. Experts think it might be more effective against influenza B. With or without it, most people do not die from the flu, but there are some groups that face higher risks.
It's always scary when you hear of someone dying from something as common as the flu. There are 4 main ways the flu can turn deadly. The first and most common cause is pneumonia. The influenza virus can directly cause viral pneumonia, Once someone has the flu, it can weaken their immune system so much that another virus or bacteria can enter the lungs. Infected lungs fill with fluid, making it difficult to breathe, so oxygen can't get to the rest of the body, which can lead to death. Sepsis is the second way the flu can become lethal, especially in healthy younger adults and children. Sepsis occurs when a person's immune system goes into overdrive trying to fight the flu. This causes inflammation, which can lead to a cascade of symptoms that ultimately ends in organ failure. A third way the flu can kill is by increasing your risk of heart attack. Experts say an adult's risk of heart attack increases sixfold in the 7 days following a flu diagnosis. The fourth way the flu can kill is by dehydration, particularly among infants and young children. The flu often causes vomiting and diarrhea, which can quickly become life-threatening if fluids aren't replaced in the body. So if you get the flu, when should you be worried? Some people have a higher risk for serious complications from the flu, including the elderly, children under the age of 5, pregnant women, and those with chronic health problems. If this is you, make sure you see a doctor. If you're a healthy older child or adult, watch out for sudden dizziness, severe or persistent vomiting, difficulty breathing, pain or pressure in the chest or abdomen, and flu-like symptoms that improve then return with a fever or worse cough.
It's Major League Baseball season in America. Opening day was yesterday. 26 teams went head-to-head in the first of the 162 games they'll play throughout the summer. And while they're focused on fields with diamonds, today's positive athlete is focused on one with goalposts. When Kendall Brest was diagnosed with a heart disorder, he and his coach, who's also his dad, found another way Kendall could stay in the game.
We had a home game here on a Friday night, and Kendall was getting ready for school.
I stood up and I stretched and got really dizzy. I started falling over and got numb on one side of the body. My speech was all slurred and I had no clue what was going on.
I took him for a CAT scan at the local hospital, and we literally walked back into the school and my cell phone rang, and they said, you need to bring him back to the ER because he had a stroke.
We were in shock, we were in disbelief.
They diagnosed me with LVNC, which stands for left ventricular non-compaction. They just, in the end, ruled out playing physical contact sports because taking a hit to the chest could result in bad things.
The conversation basically revolved around your playing days are over, there's something ahead that will be bigger and better, and you don't even know what that is right now.
We were so close to our doctors down in Pittsburgh, and we decided we wanted to give back for so much they did for us. So we decided there's a camp for kids that have heart ailments like I do, and we decided to give back.
And the inspiration was having the hashtag Kendall Strong game.
Yeah, Cam! There it is.
Honestly, in my heart, I thought, I want to raise $1,000. But secretly, I was hoping for $5,000. Never believed it would be $10,000.
To get that, yeah. Make sure at halftime we talk to the centers and the guards.
Needs to be lower.
Kendall got into coaching because he wanted to be a part of the program.
It was just the number one thing I knew I could do because I already knew things about coaching football.
Jake, get ready, get ready.
It's his junior year. That was the longest season of my life. And one of the greatest thrills was, as a dad, after winning the championship his junior year, was hugging him.
It just felt like such a special season, and setbacks and a great story, and we just gave each other a big hug afterwards.
And he said, we did it, Dad. And I'll never forget that.
Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, get a lot of coverage in the media, but how about Aurora Australis? Just as beautiful, just as incredible to see, just in another hemisphere. These pictures come to us from a photographer named Brad Phipps. He was one of the passengers who flew from New Zealand to the Antarctic Circle, where he was able to capture the Southern Lights from his airplane window and then put together this time-lapse video. So if you thought the Northern Lights were the only game in town, listen up! The green glow over the Antarctic is every bit as aurorable. Sure, some might make light of it or say it's not boreally the same, but scientifically speaking, the only difference between them is their pole position. I'm Cral Azuz. Hope you have a great Easter weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on Monday.